Mr. Speaker, thank you so much for hosting us here in your ceremonial office. It's quite an honor to be
Gorgeous.
here.
Hey, I'm so happy to have y'all, but it's not as cool as your set. Let's be honest.
We just tried to mimic your office.
Sure.
That's all we did. This is the 250th anniversary of the United States of America. You are a huge fan of the Declaration of Independence. Personally, you get to be Speaker of the House of the United States of America on the country's 250th anniversary. What is that like?
It's pretty surreal. I mean, all this has been. I've been Speaker for going on 2.5 years now, and none of this was foreseeable. But you're right, to hold the gavel on this moment, huge anniversary for the country, so consequential. The fact that we're headed into a battle now between two completely different visions for who we are as Americans and who we're going to be, it's a pretty epic thing. I had all these grand designs, and you guys will appreciate this, that on the anniversary of the 250th, that we would take Congress back to Independence Hall in Philadelphia and have like a special session. And they poured cold water on my plans a few months ago and said, that's not a thing. The security requirements to set that up would be almost impossible, and you can't have that many members off the Hill and all that.
I like the idea.
It was a great idea, right?
It was.
In spite of that, we're going to be here on the Capitol Hill with a record number of visitors to the city, in spite of the fact that we have record high temps. We're going to have the world record fireworks display. And I was with President Trump in the Rose Garden just night before last for a couple of hours. We had dinner, and he said, this is going to be the biggest one of all time, guys, all time. So glad y'all are here, kind of getting a little taste of it.
And here we are on the precipice of this 250th anniversary, and yet we are seeing democratic socialism spread like wildfire across this country. How concerned are you that this growth of democratic socialism will continue?
Very concerned, and I've been sounding the alarms, and I've been doing this for many months. I mean, we began this current election cycle for the fateful midterms that happened in November, of course, right after the last one in the House. You got to run every 2 years. So the Speaker's in charge of the whole map, ensuring that we hold the Republican majority and grow it, and I believe we can, but it takes a lot of work to do it. So I've been out on the campaign trail, almost every day. We're not in session. I'm flying around. I get to home to the districts, see our constituents, and I hit the road and go to all the other states. And we were seeing this trend, guys, develop for a long time. I've described it as mini Mamdanis who've been popping up all around the country to run for Congress, as frightening as that is. And when I would say that, a couple months back, people are like, oh, that's a New York City thing. No, now we see very much it is a national thing. The danger to this is that on the left, it is the insurgent left, the far right, the communists, the Marxists, who have all the energy, the money, the grassroots excitement. That's why they're winning these races. And by last count, as we sit here this morning, 28 of those insurgent left, I'm talking about far left, they call themselves Democrat Socialists, but they are Marxist communists. There's a groundswell of this, and we must defeat it, because these people these are the most radical people who have ever even considered running for Congress. As you know, many of them famously, they won't say the Pledge of Allegiance. So we have some who have open ties to Al-Qaeda and terrorist organizations. Their platform states, the DSA, Democrat Socialists of America, published platform provisions. They want to abolish the Supreme Court and the presidency, borders, police. It's just radical stuff. We've got to defeat that.
It's crazy, absolutely.
And part of that was the SAVE Act to try and help make sure the elections are safe. The Supreme Court just said that you can receive mail ballots as long as you want to after the election day, postmarked, whatever. Mm-hmm. But there's a fight here. You've got problems in the Senate, and then you also have problems with conservatives in the House. How do you, as Speaker, do you manage this? How do you get the Senate to do what you want the Senate to do? And how do you get members of your own party to understand your plan and your vision?
Well, look, we've been doing that. We have the smallest margin in U.S. history. We have effectively a one-vote margin, which means I have to have unanimity. And when you're passing a rule, which is a procedural matter to move forward with legislation, if one person goes rogue, then others do it to make a statement. We'll get all these guys together. This is another day at the office. We have passed the Save America Act 3 times in the House. I'll pass it again. I'm going to pass it a 4th time. But what I've tried to make my colleagues understand is the only path to get that to the president's desk for signature in any form is on a reconciliation bill. And not to get too deep in the weeds, but you guys know all this. But in the Senate right now, you have to have 60 votes to move a piece of legislation like that. We only have 53 Republicans. And on most days, even they aren't united. So there's no way you're going to get 53 Republicans and then add 7 Democrats in the Senate. They will never vote for election integrity for all the reasons that we know, which underlines why we need it. So the only way to get it to the president's desk is get around the 60 vote threshold, and that is by using the procedural tool known as reconciliation, which means you have to reconcile a budget to get it through that way. I've spent a lot of time with Leader Thune, my counterpart in the Senate. I've told him, if I get this done, not if, when I get this done and send it over the fourth time on a reconciliation bill, that's the ticket. That is the route. And you're going to have to push that through, and you're going to have to get all the Senate Republicans on board to vote for it, and I'll make it irresistible because I'll put some sweeteners in there on other things like defense spending and things that we must do. The Democrats are no longer going to help us do. I'm very optimistic about this. I mean, this is just the challenge of small majorities in a very polarized era when we're on the eve of an election, when the stakes are very high. But they also said we couldn't do Reconciliation 1.0, which is the big, beautiful bill, the working families tax cut. They said I couldn't get Reconciliation 2.0 done, which we just did a couple months ago. Everything we've accomplished since I've become Speaker, everyone, the media, and most pundits have said was impossible. So just another challenge. We'll meet it. We'll get it done, and we'll get it to the president's desk. He says every day it's the most important thing, and I agree with him. And I told him, I said, sir, as you know, I don't have tattoos, but if I did, I'd have Save America right here on my shoulder because, look, if we don't have election integrity, we don't have anything. It's how you maintain a constitutional republic. You have to have free and fair elections. It's central to everything we do.
Of course, the Supreme Court recently ruled with regards to birthright citizenship. Did they get it wrong? And I'm assuming the answer to that is yes. And what will Congress do to correct that error?
They did get it wrong. It's a tragic decision. It was a razor-thin outcome. And if you read Justice Clarence Thomas's erudite dissenting opinion, it explains everything. I think he said it so well. Originally the idea of birthright citizenship was to remedy the sins of slavery and to ensure that people born here are citizens. Of course, it has been wildly abused, and with birthright tourism, as we call it now, people coming from other countries, most notably China, and they're sending young communists here. They're born here, they have dual citizenship, they go home, they train them as communists,
right.
And then they come back over here and go into our university systems and steal our IP and everything else. It's a serious national security threat. Some of the justices understood that, and yet they allowed this to continue. So the ball is punted to Congress. There's a debate going on right now. We're doing the research. This has been a busy week. I haven't even had a chance to read the full opinion yet. Every minute of the day has been filled. But we're digging into that to try to determine what, if anything, we can do. We should do it. Is there some statutory language that we could add that would adjust or fix that? Or are we going to have to amend the Constitution? There's scholars who say, both of them make arguments on both sides. If you have to amend, as you know, that is a gargantuan effort. It's only been done 27 times in the history of the Constitution, and that's because it requires 2/3 of both chambers of Congress and 3/4 of the states to ratify. It's typically a many years long endeavor, a big lift. If that's what's required, we'll work on it, but we're going to determine that here in the coming days.
I see on the show a lot. I think you are probably the most faith-filled Speaker of the House, perhaps in the history of the country, and I don't say that lightly. As Speaker, how has your faith been strengthened and how has it been challenged?
Well, it's been strengthened by just the daily affirmation that we see prayers answered in real time every day. I mean, truly, we're in unprecedented, very challenging times. And much of what we've done here is not possible on paper. You look at the size of the majority and the extreme challenges, the outside influences and all that. But we pray this through. I mean, really, it's prayer and patience that has delivered all these victories for the people and allowed us to fulfill our promises that we all made on the campaign trail in 2024 to get America back on track, to get America back. And, it's the parting of the Red Sea almost every day here. So that's a great affirmation of faith. My faith is never challenged. And, because I'm very dug in and resolute on what I know to be the truth. And so I'm undeterred by challenges and headwinds and other things that I think may throw other people off course. I'm often reminded of the great example of John Quincy Adams, and we've discussed before, I'm sure, because I talk about him all the time. In fact, just last night I spoke at the Adams, the Adams Memorial Foundation, and they have for the Adams family, John Adams, Abigail, John Quincy Adams. There's this group led by Newt Gingrich's daughter, Jackie, who keep that history alive. And I shared a quick anecdote about John Quincy Adams that I think of all the time. They called him the hellhound of slavery. as you know, after he was the 6th president, he ran for Congress, and he kept trying to bring the resolution over and over to end slavery, and sadly, the country wasn't ready for it yet, mid-1800s. He brought the resolution about the 13th or 14th time. They imposed a gag rule to try to shut him up, and he didn't do it. And after about the 14th failed attempt, a younger member of Congress famously came up to him on the House floor, which is now Statuary Hall, the original House chamber. They said, Mr. President, why do you do it? Why? It's going to fail again. And he said, young man, duty is ours, results are God's. And it's a very liberating way to live. You know, what I do every day is my duty, as faithfully as I can. And I don't get too wrapped around the axle on the results because I know I'm not the sovereign. God's in charge. I'm absolutely convinced he's not done with America yet. I believe he's going to show us the path through. And as Reagan used to say, actually paraphrasing Lincoln, America is the last best hope of man on the earth. We must hold this republic. We must defend it. And I believe we can if we're faithful to the founding principles and to the God from whom our rights derive. So that's what I do every day. And on the 2 hours that I'm scheduled to sleep every night, I sleep very well because,
Wonderful.
you know, I know I left it all in the field.
That's
you know?
important.
Yeah.
Very important. One last question. You know, when you first were elected to Congress, you slept in your office, you showered in the House gym. Here you are almost 10 years later, you're Speaker of the House. If Mike Johnson in 2026 could go back in time and talk to Mike Johnson in 2017, what would he say to Mike?
That's a great question. None of this was anticipated or expected. And so I didn't really have a lot of time to prepare to be the leader of the institution. The average tenure before someone becomes speaker is 16 years in the modern era, and I was here 6.7 years before they handed me the gavel. And so I didn't have time to build the infrastructure, the big strategy, you know, the staffing that's necessary to do it, certainly not the fundraising apparatus. We had to build all that from scratch. We launched a plane and built it as we were flying it after the tumult of the open speakership before they handed me the gavel. You know, maybe I would have told younger Congressman Mike Johnson to start preparing for all that in advance, but it would have been an unknowable thing. Look, there's no regrets. I mean, when I was handed the gavel, it was after great tumult. I have considered myself a wartime speaker every day since. And my objective every day is just keep steady hands to the wheel, keep tied to the ground and grounded in our American ground, in our founding principles, because that's what guides us. That's what guided the founders. That's what set us up to be here. To try to articulate that in a winsome way every day so that we can pass these ideas along to the people coming behind us, and to keep the rowdy bunch of representatives here together so we can move the America First agenda to fix the country. When we won the big election in 2024, we got a mandate from the people, unified government, Republicans in charge of the White House, the Senate, and the House. And the reason we obtained that is because the disastrous 4 years under Biden-Harris wrecked every area of public policy. So it's a huge list of tasks we have every day to fix everything. And by God's grace, we've been on track to do that. We have much more left to do, and I'm convinced we're going to defy history, win the midterms, grow the majority, give myself a little bit larger buffer in margin, and keep this going. And I'll do it as long as God allows me to, because there's much work left to do.
Well, thank you for your service, and happy 4th of July.
Thanks, brother. Great. Same to you. Glad y'all are here.
Good to see you again.
God bless.